regret of the Connecticut General Assembly for the history of wrongs inflicted upon black citizens by means of slavery, exploitation, and the legalized racial segregation, and calling for all the citizens to take part in acts of racial reconciliation. Resolved by this General Assembly,
whereas involuntary servitude, as practiced within the borders of Connecticut in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century, violated the precept that all persons are created equal and denied thousands of people liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the ability to benefit from their own work, and in many cases, life itself. And whereas,
in 1723, the Connecticut colony passed an act to prevent the disorder of Negro and Indian servants and slaves in the night season that established a 9:00 p.m. curfew, the violation of which was punishable with a whipping for a servant and a fine for the master. And
whereas Connecticut's wealth increased as its merchants and businessmen participated in the triangle trade, which carried slaves, cash crops, and manufactured goods between West Africa, the Caribbean, and America. And such merchants and businessmen profited from supplying food and livestock to slaves in the West Indies who labored on sugarcane plantations. And
whereas in the mid-1770s, there were approximately 5,100 slaves in Connecticut colony, comprising 3% of the population, and slave ownership was not limited to the wealthy. And
whereas the practice of slavery was embedded in constitutional provisions and laws enacted by predecessors to the General Assembly and other civil authorities of Connecticut. And
whereas emancipation bills were rejected by the Connecticut legislature in 1777, 1779, and 1780, and
whereas the Connecticut legislature did enact the Non-Importation Act of 1774, the 1784 Gradual Abolition Act, and the 1788 Act to prevent the slave trade. And
whereas in 1818, Connecticut's new constitution specifically denied the right of African American population to vote. And
whereas Connecticut played a significant role in abolition efforts that culminated in the outlawing of slavery in 1848.
And whereas a significant number of nations, states, and corporations have come forward to offer apologies for the roles they played in promoting or supporting slavery. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Connecticut General Assembly issues its apology for the practices of slavery in Connecticut and expresses its profound contrition for the official acts that sanctioned and perpetuated the denial of basic human rights and dignity to fellow humans, and vows to work for the elimination of residual structures of racism that continue to exist in our state. And
be it further resolved that the General Assembly urges schools, colleges, universities, religious and civic institutions, businesses, and professional associations to do all within their respective powers to acknowledge the transgressions of Connecticut's journey from a colony to a leading state in the abolition efforts, and to learn the lessons of history in order to avoid repeating mistakes of the past, and to promote racial equality and reconciliation. And
be it further resolved that the Connecticut Assembly calls on all Connecticut residents to recommit their state, their communities, and themselves to the proclamation of their nation's Declaration of Independence, and that all persons are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and to work daily to treat all persons with abiding respect for their humanity, and to eliminate racial prejudices, injustices, and discriminations from our society. General Assembly, January session 2009, and it's our LCO number 6447, offered by Representative Green, standing to my right, and Representative Cafaro. of the 142nd District. There is an amendment that reads,
Be it further resolved that the provisions of this resolution do not provide any person with a right of action or the grounds for a right of action against the state for the payment of damages or reparations or for injunctive relief.
and all of this was adopted first in January of 2009, then in May of 2009, and by the Senate on the 3rd day of June 2009. It is with great pride that I am honored to present this to Stella Antley. Thank you for